it's Lori again, and welcome back to my kitchen. Hey guys, old man winter is literally knocking at our door. We had such a hard freeze last night. There was like almost 2 inches of ice on the animal water buckets this morning. So we're really feeling the pinch. We're feeling the pressure. We're doing last minute, winterization things. All of those things that we all do before winter really hits. So we have been running around like crazy. But one of the final things that we do is cleaning out our gardens. And just like any other year, I am always left with all of this produce at the end of the season that I'm just frantically trying to get preserved and on the shelves. And one of those main items is tomatoes. And I have tomatoes that we brought in from the garden at the end of the season here that are ranging from almost fully ripe to partially ripe. They're kind of orange, but they're still really firm. And then of course I have a lot of green, just totally green tomatoes. And I would like to share with you guys today what I like to do with these tomatoes. Now, you know that you can pickle tomatoes. You can make Italian spaghetti sauce or just plain sauce. There's salsa. There's so many things you can do with tomatoes. But we really like savory dishes with tomatoes. It's just one of the staples in our home, savory type tomato dishes. And so one of my favorite ways of doing tomatoes, particularly at this point in time of the year, at the end of the growing season, is I make a chili base with them. Now, the reason why I created and developed this recipe in this way is because in the past, in canning chili as a completed meal with both ground beef and beans in it, you either need to pressure can at meat times, which to me lends a scorch or burnt flavor that none of us really like in our house. The extreme heat of the pressure canner just scorches tomato-based products when you're canning them at meat times, in my opinion. Otherwise, you are left, if you have meat and beans in your chili, otherwise you're left hot water bathing for 3 hours, which works wonderful. You do not get that scorched flavor at all when you hot water bath your chili for 3 hours. But let's face it, it is a really, really long process. And when I am looking at all of this wonderful bounty that God has given us and blessed us with, I want to do everything within my power to quickly get through it and get it preserved and on our shelves before it spoils or before I lose it. And so I developed this chili base, or chili sauce, if you'd like to call it that, that I can just pop atop of this chili base, and then at the time of heating and serving it, that's when I can add my ground beef and my beans and my corn, or however I want to build my chili from there. But with this chili base, it is only the tomatoes and the vegetables. And so the process time is shortened up to just a 40-minute or less process time in the hot water bath. And so I can get through a lot more tomatoes this way than if I added my meat and my beans and made a completed chili. All right. So I'll share my recipe with you. I have been doing this for many, many years. It is just, like I said, one of those habits at the end of the garden season to just get these tomatoes done and on my shelves. So here's my recipe for chili base. 12 quarts of raw tomato puree, 3 medium onions minced, 2 large bell peppers, now you can use red or green, minced, 4 dry and crumbled chili peppers, 2 tablespoons garlic. And then we're going to simmer and cook that for a while. And then we will add 8 tablespoons of chili powder, 4 teaspoons of paprika, 2 tablespoons of oregano, 2 tablespoons of basil, 2 tablespoons of cumin, salt and pepper to taste, and 2 cups of brown sugar. Now, I want to just stop a minute and I just want to talk to you about the tomatoes, okay? Now, at this point in time of the year, I have canned so many tomatoes. Let's face it, we're all probably just done. I don't want to see another tomato for a year, right? So I talked to you about how I have tomatoes in all sorts of different stages. And at the end of the year, I tend to get a lot of ugly tomatoes, what I call ugly tomatoes. And this would be one of those ugly tomatoes, okay? They're just kind of growing funny. They're not really ripening well. You know, it's not warm anymore. There's not a whole lot of daylight hours. And so the tomatoes just kind of sit in stasis. Let's just say that. They just don't ripen well. But now, even though there are blemishes on this tomato, 95% of this tomato is usable. There's no reason to throw these guys out. This is a lot of good food here. So I just cut the ugly parts off and core my tomatoes. Skin, seeds, and all then go into my food processor and I puree it. Now, I've got some that are a little bit less ripe. You know, they're just barely orange. And this one is kind of ugly too. But just cut the ugly off, core it, stick it in that food processor. Now, I've really found that pureeing in the food processor, the raw tomatoes, raw uncooked tomatoes, they actually puree a lot better, because when you cook tomatoes, the skins tend to get a little bit tough. And yeah, you can cook them and then puree them, but those skins have gotten tough in the cooking process and they don't puree up as well as if you do it when they're raw. So raw tomatoes, skin, seed, and all, just go in and puree them in your food processor. And then what I've done is I've taken and I've done the same thing with my onions. Now, I've got a combination of white onion, and I had a beautiful red onion that I needed to use. So you use whatever kind of onion you want, but I've got a combination of white and red going on in my pan today. And I just mince those up in my food processor also. Quick and easy, right? That is the name of the game. Quick and easy. So after I pureed all of my tomatoes, I have 12 quarts of tomatoes, and then I pureed up or minced up my onions, and I've got those in the pan too. You can do the same thing with your bell peppers, all right? Whether it's a red or a green, just get those in the food processor and mince those up too. But what I am doing today is I have wonderful home dehydrated peppers, and so I personally, instead of the fresh peppers, I'm going to put some of my dried bell peppers in, and just estimating how much 2 bell peppers would be, all right? So with my dehydrated bell peppers, I'm going to put in 2 or 3 good handfuls of those. Now the chili peppers, you've got 4 dry crumbled chili peppers. And you know, most of this, you guys know that I'm pretty much a dump cook, okay? And so when I'm creating my recipes, I'm kind of estimating my measurements when I give them to you. But I lead a lot with my heart, and I want you guys to lead a lot with your heart also. So it doesn't have to be an exact measurement, but 4 dry and crumbled chili peppers, and I've got home dehydrated chili peppers here too. And if you want it a little bit with a little bit more kick, you go ahead and add a few more than what I have suggested. And if you really want to get, you guys, chili pepper dust. Okay, I've stopped choking and crying. My apologies. You guys, while I was talking to you on the video and I was sprinkling and crushing those chili peppers into the pan, I took a breath in, and some of that chili dust went literally right into my lungs. So, a word of warning. Please don't talk while you're crushing and sprinkling those peppers in that pan. Because honestly, wow, that was miserable. I have never had that happen in my entire life. Of course, then again, I haven't been taping videos for my entire life and needing to talk while I'm working. But anyway, whoo, take me as a lesson, man. Be careful with those chili peppers, okay? All right, so let's continue. Now we have our tomatoes, our onions, our bell peppers, our chili peppers, and now we're going to put in 2 good-sized tablespoons of minced garlic into our pot. Oh boy, my lungs are still kind of working that stuff out. I'm going to put in 3 just because that's what I feel like doing today. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to mix this up and we are going to bring it to a simmer. And I like to cook and reduce this to about half. So in the end, you know, we're starting with approximately a little bit more than 12 quarts of raw product. And in the end, I reduce it down to about 6 or 7 quarts. Now you can reduce it as thick or as thin as what you want to, but I generally simmer and cook it for approximately an hour, maybe sometimes 2, but no longer than that. Chili can be kind of soupy. You know, it's not going to hurt anything at all. It's not like a pasta sauce where you really want it thick so that it's going to be sticking to noodles. Chili is a lot more flexible and you don't have to reduce it quite as much. So I'm just going to get this on over medium heat and I'm going to simmer this for an hour or 2 and then I'll come back and we'll continue. Hey guys, I decided I better come back and just remind you as I'm stirring my stuff here that during this simmering and cooking period, you do want to remain attentive to your pot because as we all know, tomatoes can scorch to the bottom of the pan, all right? So I keep this on medium heat. I don't put it on high heat. I keep it on medium heat and I do occasionally stir and just really kind of tend it throughout the cooking period so that I don't have anything sticking and burning to the bottom of the pan. We don't want that flavor and we don't want all those little black fleckies, you know, that you can kind of accidentally scrape off the bottom of your pan with your spoon. So be attentive, stir it occasionally, and allow it to simmer and reduce for about an hour or 2 hours. That is completely your choice. And of course, it depends also how juicy your tomatoes are. So you just cook it to where you're happy to it in the reduced state. All right, so I'll be back in about an hour. All right, guys, so I'm back. I have been reducing the chili base at this point in time for approximately an hour, hour and a half, all right? And I can tell now when I'm stirring it, do you hear that? I can tell that I'm starting to have kind of burnt or scorched places on the bottom of my pan. And I have stirred this very frequently all the way through the reduction period. But this is my warning sign that, hey, you probably better stop. Otherwise, it's really going to get this burnt and scorched taste. So I've reduced it almost to half of what it was, all right? I started with 12 quarts of raw product, and I'm now down to about, I don't know, I'd say maybe 8 quarts at this point in time. And you can reduce it further, all right? If you're not having any of that sticking in the bottom of your pan, feel free to reduce it a little bit more. And I do apologize for all the steam tonight. You know, usually my kitchen is a little bit warmer than what it is right now. We have not started the wood stove. We're not heating our home yet, but it's cooler. And so, you know, the steam is obviously showing a lot easier tonight as I'm cooking and recording. But at this point in time, I'm okay with the amount of reduction that I have because chili is so flexible, honestly. Like I mentioned before in the video, it's not like a pasta sauce where you expect it to be so thick that it sticks and clings to noodles. Chili, you're going to have so many other ingredients in there and so many other things going on that to have more of like a soup type base that isn't completely reduced is absolutely fine. There's no right or wrong with chili, all right? So I have so far reduced this, I would say at least 4 quarts worth of water or, you know, juice or whatever that's evaporated off. And at this point in time, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the rest of my seasonings. Now, I have turned it down all the way onto low, okay? At this point in time, I'm really not going to cook it any further, all I'm going to do is season it. And particularly when I go to add sugar. Sugar, as all of you know, scorches and burns at high heat, all right? So once I add the sugar, I'm pretty much done with the cooking period, and all I'm going to do at that point in time is water bath everything. So I've got kind of my reduced beginning base here, and now we're going to start seasoning it. And I know that this sounds like an insane amount of chili powder, but believe me, you're working with raw tomatoes and it really needs this much. Now, you have creative freedom to either reduce the amounts that I suggest in my recipe or increase it if you want more. It's all a matter of taste, all right? But what I have found is to this amount of tomatoes and onions and whatever else, I really like, along with those dried chili peppers that almost killed me earlier, I really like to add 8 tablespoons of chili powder, all right? So that's what I'm going to do right now. And that chili powder not only flavors your actual chili base, but it also helps to cover the ground beef or the beans or anything else that you add to the chili base in the future when you open it up to heat and serve, all right? So we have 8 tablespoons of chili powder. And then we have 4 tablespoons of paprika. Hopefully I can squeak out 4 there. Yep. All right. Well, not much left in there. We're just going to tap that all in. I'm going to turn off my heat because I can hear, even though it's on low, I can still kind of hear it boiling on the bottom of the pan. So I'm just going to turn off my heat completely at this time. I don't want anything to scorch and burn. All right. So we've got our paprika. Then we're going to do 2 tablespoons of oregano. And those are good sized tablespoons. We're going to do 2 tablespoons of, oh, let's see, let me catch up on my scribbling here. Basil. 2 tablespoons of basil. And those are really good heaping tablespoons also, all right? We're not afraid of seasoning in this house, all right? And like I said again, you have creative freedom. Start slow, build up, you know, no worries. You can change this however you want to. All right, and then we have our cumin, and we are going to do 2 tablespoons of cumin. And in chili, I really like cumin, so I'm going to be generous on those 2 tablespoons also. We're going to do salt and pepper to taste. All right. And when I say to taste, now remember you got a lot of tomatoes and onions and everything in there. Don't be afraid of your salt. I'm going to give 2 great big pinches of salt. Probably the equivalent of 2 teaspoons of salt, all right? Just if you have to have a measurement. And then pepper to taste also. And I'm going to give a good 3-4 finger pinch on that too. Approximately 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of ground pepper. All right. So now the last thing we're going to add is, this is kind of a sweet and spicy recipe that I've written. And so we already have our spicy in there because we have all those chili peppers. We've got the cumin, we've got the, you know, the bell peppers and all of that goodness in there. So now we're going to add a little bit of sweet. And I put in 2 cups of brown sugar. Now you can put in 2 cups of prepared brown sugar, What I really like to do for this recipe is make my own brown sugar, which is 1 cup of regular white granulated sugar to 1 tablespoon of blackstrap molasses. And so I have in my little bowl here that I've mixed up, I have 2 cups of regular sugar and 2 tablespoons of blackstrap molasses. Now you can use, like I said, prepared brown sugar, whether it be light, medium, dark, it doesn't matter. Just 2 cups of brown sugar. All right, so we're gonna add that right into our pan. And then we're just gonna give it a really good mix, all right? This is nice and hot, it's all cooked down. All we're doing at this point in time is just seasoning and flavoring, all right? There's technically no more cooking involved in the pan at all. And mix that up super good. It's nice and hot. Your sugar is going to dissolve without any additional heat. And just make sure that you have all of those seasonings really well incorporated. All right, at this point in time, I really want you to taste this, all right? So, just for time's sake, I'm just going to take my little brown sugar bowl here, put a little dab of that chili base in there, and I didn't bring a regular spoon along with me, so I'm going to use a clean measuring spoon just to give this a taste and make sure that I have things the way that I want them, because this is your last opportunity to make any adjustments. Whether you want it a little bit more sweeter, whether you want a little bit more oregano or a little bit more hot peppers in there. You could always add a little bit of jalapeno or cayenne. You can adjust it to your taste, a little bit more salt, whatever. So I'm just gonna give it a little bit of a taste at this point in time and just make sure that I'm happy with the product. Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. You guys, that's so good. It's so good. Add some beans and some ground beef and maybe even some green beans or corn or whatever. Just let your imagination just run wild on how you want your chili to be. But oh my goodness, this is such a good base. All right, so we have a hot product, a hot food product. We want to have a hot canner. And before I completed this cooking period, I did prepare my canner. This is just a simple hot water bath process, okay? If you would like to do this in pints, it is 35 minutes hot water bath or steam canning, all right? If you would like to do it in quarts like what I'm going to do, then you are going to want to do it for 40 minutes hot water bath or steam can. All right, so now I have not warmed up my jars. I'm going to introduce this hot product kind of slowly to my jar so that my jar kind of acclimates to the heat and I do not have any thermal shock. And we are just going to go ahead and ladle this now, just like anything else, into our jars. But I am going to, like I said, go just a little bit slowly. Maybe I should tip down my camera. Probably a good idea. You know, sometimes I just kind of get cruising along here and I forget that you guys can't see everything that I'm doing. So I just kind of drizzle it into my cold jars, just kind of slowly, and allow that jar to acclimate. And then I go ahead and I do the same thing on the next jar and kind of allow that jar to acclimate and adjust to the heat also. Then what I do is I go back. This one has adjusted, the first one that I did. I go back and I completely fill it. And we are going to go all the way up to about 1 inch headspace. Look at that beautiful chili-based sauce, you guys. This is actually, it's lovely. Here, let me see if I can show you a little ladle full here. I'll get my mixing spoon. Look at how gorgeous this is. It's smooth enough, but it's also kind of chunky because you still have like the seeds in there. And of course, our skins have been emulsified, so you're not finding any really big chunks of that in there. But this is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. All right, so we've got that first jar filled. We're going to go ahead and take just a clean wet washcloth, just like any other canning application. Just wipe that rim to make sure that you don't have any spills or whatever on it. I'm using my Superb lids tonight, and so I'm going to just put these on until the very first sign of resistance, because the Superb lids, they have such a thicker sealing compound on it that they have a hard time venting the air out of the jar. And if you screw these down too tight, you will have buckling issues. And so with the Superb lids, I just go to the very first sign of resistance on the lid. And then these hot jars of chili base are going to go into a hot prepared canner. And we will continue filling our jars. Now this jar is already starting to acclimate. I'm going to just slowly dribble into the next one and get that one acclimating to the heat. This one has already adjusted, and I can quickly then finish filling it to 1 inch headspace. Gonna get another one started. Wipe my rim. Place my lid. And into the hot canner. All right, guys, so I'm gonna go ahead and just fill up the rest of my jars. All right, so since I felt like there was some scorching going on in the bottom of my pan, I didn't reduce my my chili base as much as I normally do. And so I have a couple more quarts than normal, quote unquote. And this is where I say that you have freedom. You reduce yours to whatever point you feel comfortable with. But if you can see, all right, when I was stirring my pot, I could tell that I was starting to have a few little burnt spots on the bottom of my pan, and I reduced my heat, and it wasn't solving the problem. And so I just figured good enough is good enough, and I stopped cooking it down. And so that's why I have more product tonight than what I normally do. And it's probably just because it's been a really long week and a really long day, and maybe I tried to rush things a little bit tonight, but you can see that there are just a little bit of scorched stuff going on in my pan, and that's why I decided to stop the cook down period. So you'll have 6 to 7, maybe a little bit more quarts in this recipe. And obviously I have more than 7 quarts tonight. I probably have about 9 quarts just simply because I didn't reduce it anymore. But anyway, I'm going to get these into jars and I will process them later. But right now I have my canner full, and what I'm going to do is just place my lid onto my pressure canner, and I'm going to steam can my quarts of chili base for 40 minutes. Now, like I said before, if you wanted to do it in pint-sized jars, do pints for 35 minutes, quarts for 40. And I'm going to get that lid on, going to get it steam canning, and I will show you the beautiful results really soon. All right, so I am at the end of my 40-minute steam canning session, and I have allowed my canner to cool off, and I cracked my lid open just a couple of different times and allowed it to cool off in 10-minute sessions. And so now I feel like it's safe to just completely remove the lid and take my jars of amazing chili base out of the canner. Oh, look at this, you guys. Now, you see a little bit of white stuff here, and this is just simply, I'm going to switch hands. All right, or I'm really going to burn myself bad. But you see a little white stuff here, and what this is this is cream of tartar that I use in my canning water to keep all of the hard water deposits off. And that just washes off really, really simply. But look at how beautiful this is. Absolutely gorgeous. So we're just going to take all of these jars out. Now, with my superb lids, as I told you, going into the canner with the superb, I just tighten to the point of resistance, all right? Which means that I barely tighten these things because they have difficulties venting. And so then when I remove them from the canner, I just take one hand, and yes, these are extremely hot, and you don't want to over tighten. But what I do is I just snug them up if they need it. And, oh, that one needed it. That one needed snugging. Did you see how I could move that one? Just snug those rings up just a little bit. Ouch, hot, hot, hot. Oh, that one needed snugging too. And as these cool, they are just gonna pop really loud and amazing. These lids are absolutely amazing. So that is my recipe and method for chili base. Now tonight, because I had a little bit of that scorching going on, I did have an entire quart and almost 3/4 because I didn't reduce it as much as I normally do. But I wanted to avoid the burnt taste, and so I just stopped, and so that's why I have the additional ones tonight, which I will, I'll probably process this full one, and this other one is actually going to be used tomorrow in a meal. But I do want to show you the finished and cooled product, okay? So I've already popped open a jar of previously canned chili base, and I just want to show you what the texture is on this. And now remember that these are just raw tomatoes that have been pureed, skins, seeds, and all, just like I showed you tonight, in the food processor. And look at this stuff, you guys. This is absolutely thick and rich, beautiful, beautiful chili base. Now just imagine putting this into a pan, adding your cooked ground beef and cooked beans and maybe some vegetables to this. You guys, it honestly, it doesn't get any better than this. I love this stuff. I make it every year. It is just simply amazing. It's an amazing quick meal. I can just add whatever I want to it. Pork, venison, beef, chicken, even chicken. I have put canned chicken in my chili before. Any vegetables that you can imagine. You know, green beans, corn, peas, carrots, whatever it is, however you want your chili. This chili base is just honestly the basis of all sorts of good things, all right? And it's gorgeous, tasty, sweet, spicy. You make it according to your taste and your family's preference. It is absolutely amazing, if I do say so myself. So anyway, I guess for now, that's about all I have to offer you. But thank you for spending your time with me again. God bless you all, and happy canning, everybody.